Hey everyone, I recently got myself Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch, as I'm sure a number of you have as well. I figured I'd give you a few impressions on this compilation in this video. This whole bundling of Mario games isn't a new thing. Super Mario All-Stars on the Super Nintendo was a compilation of the NES Mario games. As we can see with the name, this time round it's a compilation of 3D games. Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy for the N64, GameCube, and Wii respectively. These are all games I already own or have had experience with before to some extent. The thing that most interested me was Galaxy because I can't play the original Wii version without getting pains in my wrist holding the Wiimote. There's something about pointing the thing at the screen all the time to collect those star bits that causes the problem. But thankfully the Switch port allows me to play the game without that happening. And that's great because I think Galaxy probably has the most unique level design of any Mario game I've ever seen. I also like the inclusion of Super Mario Sunshine, a game that doesn't get much attention compared to some of the other games in the series, and Super Mario 64 is an obvious inclusion. It's a fan favorite and perhaps the Ocarina of Time of Mario games, if that makes sense. The strange thing about this compilation is its limited availability. Physical I can understand, but limited digital availability? My guess is that it forces people to buy the game now and at full price, because usually there are a number of people who wait on sales and stuff like that. When starting up the game, or is it games? I guess technically it's a launcher. Anyway, there's a menu where you can not only select each of the games, but you can also listen to the soundtracks too. That's pretty cool. For some reason the years of the games is written in an Art Deco style font. I thought that was a bit random, not that it really matters. No matter which of the three games you play, if you're feeling a bit unsure about what's going down, minus is the safe word. Hitting the minus button brings up a menu where you can look up controls or go back to the main menu. Always helpful, especially if you've played any of them on their original system and aren't used to the transposed controls. Since I'm most interested in Galaxy, I'm gonna go in reverse. Since the original game was all about motion controls, I was quite curious to see how the controls would be on the Switch, given all the different ways one can play games on it. And it turns out the options are quite flexible. If you're in handheld mode, you can hold R and tap on the screen to effectively point your cursor at whatever it is you want. In tabletop or docked mode, you can play the game Wii style with the right Joy-Con being the equivalent of the Wiimote. Another option is to put them in the grip or use a Pro Controller where you can move them or move the whole controller around to point your cursor around the screen. The big difference is that with the Wii, you always had to point the remote at the screen because it needs to see the IR bar as a frame of reference. With the Joy-Con and Pro Controller, there's no such reference. So you just hold it how you want and define the center by hitting R. Basically, it's the same as if you're playing Splatoon and then you hit Y to center your aim. This is good for me because I can hold the controller in a relaxed position, which in my case is pointing slightly downwards. In terms of everything else, the game basically feels the same as the original. Same frame rate, same art style. The biggest difference is resolution. I'd argue that Galaxy looks better on a CRT TV. Even in handheld mode on the Switch you can see the textures get blurry in the distance. I guess there's no anisotropic filtering here. On the Wii on a CRT TV you can barely notice. That's also true with other little imperfections like low polygon models and things like that, but that's fine. I might go on about graphics a lot, but that's not going to stop me from enjoying the Switch port. I just find that stuff interesting to point out. I think the biggest thing about Galaxy on the Switch is the various control options. It's great that you aren't stuck to one type of control scheme. And if you're not a fan of motion controls, you can cut down on its usage a bit by using the Y button to effectively replace the shaking gestures. Overall, I'm happy that I can play the game without falling victim to carpal tunnel, and hopefully Galaxy 2 will get the same treatment someday as well. Super Mario Sunshine is quite the unique game, mainly due to its water splashing machine thing, whatever it's called again. It's a creative game with some clunky aspects to it, which is probably why it's never been re-released before. On the Switch, the game has been tweaked a bit in the looks department. The resolution is now 1080p and the UI is shoved to the edges of the screen for better visibility. Other than that, the game stays quite true to the original. One thing I wish wasn't like the original would be the frame rate. Sunshine would have benefited with 60 FPS performance. The controls are relatively close to the original as well. One exception is that the original GameCube version distinguishes between a partially and fully pressed R trigger to switch between squirting while running and squirting while standing. That's now divided into two buttons, R and ZR. I think that makes more sense to me anyway. So yeah, a pretty good improvement. but I wish the frame rate was higher. Maybe they wanted to keep the original experience intact to some degree, or maybe they just couldn't be bothered. Speaking of couldn't be bothered, let's start talking about Super Mario 64. It's the first 3D Mario game. It certainly has got the Nintendo 64 look going on. Even when it came out, I thought the game looked blurry, and that's now less the case with the Switch version. The reason I say less instead of not is because for some reason the game isn't running at 1080p. I'm guessing it's like 720, and neither is it 16:9. Why though? They did that with Sunshine, so why not here? It would have been a good opportunity to make the game look better. No 60 FPS here either, by the way. Overall, it seems kinda lazy. 1080p, 16:9, and 60 FPS is something people with emulators have been doing for ages. That being said, I'm used to playing Super Mario 64 with a Nintendo 64 controller, so playing it on a Pro controller is quite nice. Especially because the analog stick actually returns to the center properly. Just the different controller is an enhancement. And another thing I like is that the text is now very legible. I always found the font to be a bit hard to read on the original. I mean, it's not like it's impossible, but with the Switch, it's definitely less harsh on the balls of sight. Overall, it looks like Nintendo decided that good enough was good enough. Having gone in reverse when it comes to playing the games, it kind of became clear after, playing each game. Galaxy's fine because it didn't really need much to look good since it's a pretty new game. Sunshine could have had a performance bump, but at least they upped the resolution and used all of the screen, while Mario 64 feels a bit lazy. But it's good enough, and I'm guessing it will be good enough for most people who buy it. Despite all of this, it's a pretty good value to have 3 games, or 3 Mario games on one cartridge. And for me, the non-carpal tunnel sponsored controls of Super Mario Galaxy is the real highlight. Finally, I can play the game, so yeah, that's Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Switch. Post in the comments what your experience with this compilation is. There's certainly many aspects to discuss, from the games themselves to the limited availability. I hope you found this quick impression video helpful or at least entertaining. If you like the channel, consider becoming a Patreon supporter. That always helps a lot. Buying merchandise is also something that helps out too. Check the description for all the links to all the things. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.